Sweet. All right. I think we're live. Let's change the display here a little bit. There we go. Okay. Hello, everyone. All right. I asked like a little warm-up question in the chat here, where the typical where's everyone speaking from. Hello, everyone. My name is Jude. Thank you so much for joining the webinar today. I'm joined with the team from Navattic. We got Natalie and Raman. You guys want to say hi?
Yeah. Hey, everyone. Cool to see where everyone's coming in from. Probably one of the most international webinars I've done in a bit. But I am Natalie. I'm head of growth here at Navattic. I'm based in New York, so not as interesting as all these cool international places. And that's a little about me. I'll pass it to you, Raman.
Hi, everyone. I'm Raman, also based in New York, and I'm the product growth lead here at Navattic.
So we're like a team of growth, right, for this webinar. And for me personally, I'll just do a little introduction as well. Jude here from UserGuiding. And yeah, like it's so interesting to see all you guys from Canada, Bahrain. We were having a little chat before going live here about, maybe this is like the best time to have these types of events because we're able to kind of grab from the majority of the people in the world. And in today's age everyone's like working remote, so it's very interesting to see. It's not, we don't have to be like physically in the event. You can just make it online and everyone is able to join. So it's so sweet. Yeah. And this is going to be like a little of an interactive type of webinar, so keep your questions coming. We'll talk about product-led, product growth, a little bit of Navattic, a little bit of user guiding. We'll ask you some questions as well, some polls, just to better understand, where you guys at in your product-led journey. And yeah, well, the comments are so interesting. Yeah, definitely. It's good that there's a recording as well. That for example, I know like the ones in Australia, it's tough for them to get on the calls or like the events that are in like US time zone or European time zone. But sweet, nice. So we can get started. Before jumping into the webinar, little housekeeping, the usual. If you guys have any questions about product led, you guys want to reflect on where you are in your journey as well, write them in the chat. There's a Q&A session as well. We can have it throughout the event here. So if it's related to what we're speaking about right now, we can just talk about that and answer your questions when it comes to anything like in-app or interactive demo, external demo, and product-led onboarding. And yeah, just keep the questions coming, and would love to kind of take a look, see where you guys want to take this. We have about 55 minutes. We'll have a Q&A as well at the end, so this way we'll answer all your questions. But yeah, Navattic team, sweet. Before jumping in straight into like the product-led stuff, a warm-up question as well. So what I wanted to understand, because February flew by so fast. January was so long. February ended, and we still have 10 months in this year. So out of curiosity, do you guys have any like set goals, any, what do you call them, resolutions, right, for this year that's like not work related?
I can kick it off. I think I've told Raman this before, and it's personal, but probably the opposite of productive. I have a goal that I've done for the past 2 years where I love living in New York. I feel so grateful to have like a lot of friends and family in the area, but sometimes like plans can be a little overwhelming. So my goal every year is to do less on Monday and Tuesdays, just to say like no's to plans on Monday and Tuesdays. It just makes me more sane if I don't have to think about it. So that was my goal this year, just doing less stuff.
Yeah. And like how has it been so far?
So far, I have been able to protect most Monday, Tuesdays. Every now and then, something plans pop up, but I will try to purposely say no or suggest other days.
Boundaries, just like the art of saying no is like within itself is such a thing. And like living in a city like New York, it's crazy where like events happen all the time and things happen all the time. You have like this FOMO as well, like you don't want to
Yep. There's so many cool things. And I feel so lucky to have this problem, but I've just noticed that if I overbook myself, then I'm just like stressed out the entire week.
I get it. What about you, Raman?
That is a hard one, especially in New York. I feel like it's so hard to say no. Mine is not that revolutionary, but I feel like everyone's goal is this, but I'm trying to go to the gym a little bit more, trying to be more consistent. The problem with that is everyone is also trying to do that. So
So January 1st, you go to the gym and it's like packed.
yeah, and I usually do workout classes, so it's like a competitive game to get a workout class now. But hopefully it'll start to die down. And I
like
can
group classes, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Love it. For me, it's like I'm in this like I just turned 30, right? So I'm like it's so bizarre because I'm starting to have these like I don't know, there's like a second phase of like teenaging, I would say, well, like when you hit 30. And it's like all the hobbies that I've wanted to do that I've when I'm 20, now it's like now's the time to do it. Like, you get like you have your stable life at some point, right? So now I was like, I wanna sign up for a marathon. This like typical running, this running stuff and like piano classes and these things, it's like now that you have like a little of a stable life, then it's much easier to take these types of actions. I don't know if you guys like relate or if you had this like I don't know phase of when you turn like a certain age, it's like this is it.
Yeah, I feel like I've been doing the same. I'm trying to find hobbies now. I'm taking a knitting class next week, so
cool.
just random hobbies.
Right, yeah, like a balance, right?
Exactly.
Love it. Awesome. And yeah, like the chat has been pretty active so far. Got France, London, Dubai, internet, Mr. Worldwide, right? Yeah, but like let's jump into the product-led conversation here. So just a little bit of a background on why we chose this topic as well. So user guiding is just a little brief is an interactive in-app onboarding solution. So it's not just particularly for onboarding. We started this way, but now it's much beyond that because we've added some other like use cases that we've seen with some of our users. It's mainly self-serve, right? And that's essentially what product led is, right? So like you want to make it as like self-service as possible, add the information in the product itself without having so much like human touch when it comes to the onboarding, when it comes to the experience of the user. So what user guiding does is like inside the application, people, product managers are able to build interactive material inside the platform, which makes it product led in that way, right? And for interactive, Natalie, you can speak about Navattic as well.
Yeah, I can talk about interactive demos because especially when I first joined Navattic, I feel like there was so much confusion about like what is like an in-app onboarding guide as you described it or an interactive demo. I'd say the biggest difference that we use to describe is ours is not the actual application itself. It's not like you have to log in to see it. It's a little bit more like a preview, sneak peek. And I think as far as like onboarding and product led, we almost see it as a step before the in-app onboarding guidance. I'm jumping ahead a little here. I know
Yeah.
but almost a step before where you can get a little taste for what the product's going to be and get you excited so that you want to go do that free trial, try the product itself, but it's not the actual like in-app guidance.
Yeah. I totally get it. And it's very interesting because it's like you combine it's like a video format but like interactive, if that makes sense, right? Because you have it like outside, it still takes kind of the same space, but it's interactive. When it comes to product led, and I don't know if maybe some of the audience, they're not sure what that actually means or like what product led growth means. From your definition, Raman, of course, like you can jump in as well. How would you define product led, and like what do you think is like the alternative of that? So if it's not product led, what is it?
Yeah, I'm happy to take a first stab, but I see product led as I think you actually said this before. Basically, it's leading with your product, whether in the marketing, sales, or even like the CS or like onboarding cycle versus leading with a human. In the past, obviously, the way you buy software is that you'd have to take a demo, wait probably a few weeks to schedule those demos, not actually see the product till like 3 demos in. And then it wasn't until you actually purchased it that you would get to try it for yourself. Just sort of a crazy concept to think of, like, you have to wait potentially weeks and not until you actually buy the software to get hands-on with it and test it out. And what I've loved about like the whole product-led movement is essentially saying, no, let's start with the product. Let's show you the product up front, have that be the thing that convinces you, gets you excited, and then let you try it for free. And then you can decide whether or not you want to move forward. And then maybe you do want to take a live demo and, get some more insights, or maybe you're just ready to buy.
Yeah. Raman, anything from like your perspective as well? Like when like you're in like product-led growth or all of that. So what would you add to what Natalie said, and how do you think this like plays a role in SaaS growth overall?
Yeah, I think Natalie kind of captured it. It's just letting the product do most of the selling and teaching. And I'd say like we also think about it too as like as more people publish demos, each demo kind of becomes its own like distribution channel as well. So like an acquisition point of view, like the product is still doing the selling, it's still acquiring
Yeah.
because the more people that see powered by Navattic, the better it is for us and like better it is for brand. So I think it also plays a role top of funnel,
Overall.
the brand awareness play
That's
too.
crazy. Well, I was like thinking of like the questions, and because you guys have you came out with like a report, and we came out with like a report as well. And as you said, like Natalie, like it's kind of a trend of in SaaS nowadays, and of course like this is the main thing. And later on, of course, like AI is in that as well. But what I've like when I think about it, what we're essentially trying to do is it all has to do with like saving time. As you said now, like back in the day, it would take maybe like a month, depending on the product, in order for you, like at the end of the day, like purchase it and get your hands on it and test it out. And who knows how long it's gonna take as well to like start seeing ROI and the value of it. So essentially everything is just to kind of shorten that time to value, which definitely makes sense, and it goes along with that also trend of our attention span is decreasing more and more. So trying to provide that, well, I'm jumping ahead as well, but it's very interesting to see also like how both like interactive demos and in-app demos, they can go like hand in hand with, as you said, like Ramen, like that growth, that SaaS growth later on. Based on what you've seen, right? And as we said, like I think Navattic focuses, correct me if I'm wrong, Navattic focuses more on like the pre-sign-up experience, right? Has this been in the market for like a long while, or is it like a recent thing where people are now like focusing on pre-sign-up demos?
I feel like buyers today, they want to experience value before they commit. I think that's sort of what Natalie was alluding to, is like they don't really want to sit through demos or sales calls. They want to touch and feel the product themselves. And so I think it's starting to become more common where you bring value earlier in the process. This is like a weird example, but I almost think of it as like a dating app and a first date, where it's like the dating app is pre-sign up and you're sort of like enticing someone with your
That's so
best.
true.
You're picking your prompts, you're not like revealing everything, but you're sort of enticing them to
It's like
be
a teaser type of
yeah,
like what to expect type of
yeah. You're building confidence in like who you are and like what the product's value is. And I think post sign up is like more of where that real work happens, where you're on the first date, you're getting to know them. It's like the friends. Or in this case, it's like actually activating them, getting them to see the product, see value in it.
That's so true. I like that, when you kind of tie in like products and software and all this like real life examples that people can relate to as well. I did have like a poll question for the audience as well, just to kind of better understand where they are on their product led journey or their onboarding journey as well. We can start this poll. So essentially it's provided. So yeah, how do you guys like currently approach your onboarding? So we have like the external demos. It's not showing the whole content here, but basically like videos, or do you already have some external content on the website, or demos? Is it mainly like product led? or use some sales led? Is it mainly sales led, or you're not sure about that as well?
This is so interesting how many people are product led and on this call. So I was kind of expecting this to mostly be like all, or so how many people are sales led? I was expecting this to all be product led people, but it's cool. Maybe some sales led companies are sort of starting to explore this, thinking about how they can start introducing elements of PLG. Yeah, I was not expecting that for the poll. That's cool.
Yeah, you'd be surprised. Like, there's so many using these polls. You would think, as you said, like a lot of people would already be in this, have like this understanding of growth, PLG, investing in PLG. But investing in PLG, it takes a lot of effort as well, and sometimes it's hard to transition from sales to product led, because there is this like initial investment of time first. But then once you get that going, it's, as you said, like the product sells itself. And for me, I find that so fascinating. It's like 21st century, you know.
I think what's also interesting is the amount of companies that are some mix of everything. Like Steven put this in the chat, but even in the report that we released, I know we're going to talk about that in a little bit.
Yeah.
We saw about like half of the respondents said they were both sales-led at PLG. And even when we describe ourselves, like we said, we went PLG, but we still have our sales-led motion. So I think the next wave of PLG, what I'm seeing is like, it's no longer just like you have a free trial and you're PLG and you get to declare it or you don't. It's cool that now I feel like there's a wider definition with things like interactive demos and in-app onboarding.
I mean, I would like add to this, of course, like human touch. It's still very important, because first of all, like so many people also, they just want to get their like answer right away from like a human. And now I'm very intrigued to see like where AI is going to take this when it comes to like interactive onboarding, whether it's like, for Navattic or in-app onboarding as well. I know like we've started implementing some AI stuff as well, but like if you've seen from other webinars, everyone is just talking about AI. Yesterday there was like ProductCon in London. I don't know if you saw, but like everything was like, they talked about AI. And it's also like, I don't know if there's like another wave that's something that's different than PLG and sales led, AI led type of stuff, right?
Yeah.
We can, let's stop the poll here. Look at the results. So we got, mostly sales led, but experimenting with PLG, which is interesting to begin with. What do you guys say about this?
I think, like I said, I'm seeing more and more companies who were traditionally sales led just trying to think about ways that they could start incorporating it. I also did see, I feel like a few years ago, there was this really big push for PLG, like early before 2020s, like it became the hot new rage. Everyone was like, you need to go PLG. And even my past company, we were a PLG company. I didn't even call it PLG. I just knew we had a free trial, that's how we got most of our signups. But I think a lot of companies didn't adopt maybe like the methodology and practice, and really what Raman's going to describe of like how we went PLG, the steps. They're like, okay, we have this software that maybe was not built to be self-serve, but we're just going to slap on a free trial. And then we saw maybe like a swing in the back direction, because a lot of companies, if they didn't, implement the best practices or didn't actually do like user testing to see, is it easy to use my software? Just because it's free doesn't mean people will have success. They went back to just sales led for a little. And now I feel like we're seeing people come back to PLG or start thinking about it again, but not trying to fall into the same trap of like, let's just slap on a free trial to a product that isn't inherently self-service. Let's think about like, we've had some customers who say, I'm going to experiment with PLG just by starting with interactive demos first and offering that on the website. Or maybe it's, hey, let me first start by just trying to make my product self-serve by adding in-app guidance before I offer the free trial. So I feel like there's like curiosity around different ways to do it, but that old methodology of just like slap on a free trial to any product and call yourself PLG, there's maybe a little bit of pushback against that.
100%. Yeah. I did have a question about like for small companies that are starting off, right? Would you say, should they go PLG first or sales led?
Raman, do you want to take this first?
Yeah, what do you think?
Yeah, I think so. We were sales led for 3 years before. And I think what that unlocked for us was we got to really make sure the product was where it needed to be. There weren't as many bugs. It was working as it was supposed to. And then I think number 2, we got to really understand our customer base, understand how they were thinking, what was important to them. And I'll say, like, kind of what Natalie was alluding to is, like, instead of slapping on a free trial to our product, we had to spend a lot of time making sure our product activated users. And, we had to really think about our UI and, like, add checklists and add more of a guided flow and templates. And I think starting sales-led helped us really figure out, like, what we needed to do when we started that process, so that we were able to just be a little bit more successful in that transition from
Yeah.
to PLG.
That's totally, yeah, I so get it. And like when I was also like trying to like prepare for this webinar, I was just thinking like, because when I began with user guiding, actually I wasn't in growth. I started as an account executive, so I started in sales, right? And I think this might be like the new trend also in like or maybe people are already doing this as well, where it helped me so much like understand the whole environment and sphere of what user guiding actually provides, and why people are requesting demos, or why are they signing up, and why are they going with user guiding. um just like to add to that, it definitely makes sense to like begin with sales led and be on like the front face of those like end users, or the potential customers, and understand first of all like why they're actually interested in your solution, and note it all down, because like a salesperson's job shouldn't just be about like selling the product, but it's actually getting this like they're on the front lines of the whole thing. And the people in the background, like marketing and product managers and success and like support, like they do have kind of the understanding, but it's not the same of like for real, like understanding why people are interested in this solution. So what I would say is like understanding your actual like ICP from joining demos, and this is what we've been doing as well. Like we got for a while, product managers are joining sales calls just to understand why people are actually interested and booking demos, or what their use case is with user guiding. And this then understanding that helps us create a product-led like material for them to help them achieve those steps that initially that's what they signed up for with user guiding. So without having to go through a demo, they're able to see that right away when they like sign up, or when they look at the website and all this. I think you
Also,
guys, well, yeah, so go ahead.
I will say, even today, even as like we have a PLG motion, Natalie and I, like the whole team, we spend a lot of time watching user recordings and
Yeah.
doing moderated user tests and doing user interviews. It's like we're still, and obviously talking to our sales team and our CS team and seeing what they're hearing. And honestly, that's probably been our most effective way to start to activate users. We started with a 5% activation rate, and we were able to bring that up really just by listening to users, seeing where their friction points were, and then blending that with, where we were seeing drop off in our data. And yeah, I think that's been our most effective play to improve our onboarding and improve our activation.
What did you implement? Like what was like some specific examples of like what you heard them?
And before we start, we have some really good questions in the chat about like what was our step-by-step process. Raman, maybe we can like take a step back and go from step one of like the 0 phase to all the way to getting it launched, because we did take like 9 months to go PLG. It wasn't like one day we just flipped a switch.
Yeah, definitely. I can start with how we started thinking about this. So like Natalie was saying, it kind of started to make sense for our product to go PLG. It was a pretty simple to use product. It was quick to value. So we started to feel like it made sense to explore PLG. We actually started with a $50 per month, what we called a $50 per month single seat plan to start. It was just like a little bit of a lower barrier to entry without us committing to freemium. I know some of you guys are exploring, experimenting. Like this for us was a way to experiment with it without opening the doors.
Going all the way, yeah, like freemium, yeah.
Yeah, so it was like a little bit of it felt a little bit more comfortable. It made our sales team a little bit more comfortable that we weren't just gonna blow up MQLs, and like our CS team was a little bit more comfortable. So we started with that. And once we started to see some success there, that's when we started really iterating on our onboarding experience. And like I said, in that single seat plan, we were at a 5% activation rate. So we weren't ready to open the doors to freemium yet. So we focused on
What was the onboarding for those? Like, was it different from the other seats or like the other plans?
Yeah, so it's funny. We ran some winter tests on that onboarding, and the words that kept coming up were like startling or bear. So that was a good signal to us. Like, okay, we need to make this a little bit more, feel a little bit better, feel like you're really understanding the product. And I can give a couple examples of things we did. One of the things we saw a lot in our user recordings and from our data was that people were going to multiple pages. They're just getting lost in the product. And we actually added a little bit more of a guided flow so that instead of just like dropping you on a random page, it took you step by step through each of the builders and dropped you in the builder finally. So it was a little bit more of a guided flow. It made you get to do a little bit less guesswork of what you're supposed to do next.
What was it, like an interactive flow, or
it was more like a pop-up? You entered your URL and then it took you to all the right pages versus having you guess which page to go to. We added things like a setup guide. We added different like UI buttons to make it a little bit clearer on how to edit captures, things like that we kept seeing in our data and our user recordings. We made a bunch of fixes to the onboarding. And then over time, we started activating people a little bit better. We're getting closer to like a 33% activation. And that's
strong.
when we felt more comfortable, exactly, to like open the door a little bit to launch to our website. We actually started with only 5% of traffic seeing the experience and slowly turned up the dial till more people saw the experience.
And of course, like you probably had some like testing here and there, like to see what works, and you've added and you optimized their experience and their onboarding as well as like you went through to kind of like increase that, activation rate.
Yeah, exactly. And I can give an example of this. So, like we saw our data that people who edited captures of their product were 14 times more likely to activate. And we also heard from our sales and CS team that this was like a really major for customers. But when we were talking to users in user interviews, a lot of them didn't even know that editing was possible. And so we realized like really important feature that's not being discovered, not being understood. We need to surface it better. And so we did a really small UI change where we added an edit button on the capture, and we actually had a 36% improvement in the number of captures edited and a lift in our activation as well. So it was doing like things like that where we saw drop off in our data and we saw a lot of opportunity in our user interviews to improve the onboarding.
And then you would think that, adding a minor adjustment or, maybe changing the UI a little bit, you wouldn't think that it's going to make this like much of a difference, but it really does, right?
Yeah, totally. Yeah, there's all these small changes that sort of added up together to improve activation. It's kind of funny. Like it's really those like the accumulation of all these small things.
Yeah. Because I think this is first of all, Natalie, thank you so much for handling the chat. It's blowing up here. But is there anything like interesting that some of our audience that they mentioned that you think we should?
Yeah, I think first, just to kind of answer Rob's question at a high level, I think what Raman said about those step-by-step like improvements is exactly how we went PLG. Basically, before we just didn't have a way for users to self-serve sign up for our product. They had to talk to a salesperson to buy it. And over those 9 months, as Raman talked about, we did a few different experiments. We would, huge kudos to Raman here, watch a bunch of user recordings, look at data. And I know Lauren had a question about product analytic data. I think we should touch on that next, because that was definitely one of the biggest headaches, is re-architecting our data stack to actually work for PLG. But looking at data, figuring out how to flag, active users to sales, since we did have a somewhat sales-led motion, but then we were doing this all a little bit behind the scenes. Like we didn't publicly announce that we had a free version of our product yet. And after 9 months of making those small tweaks, anytime we'd get feedback, improving the product, making it easier to self-serve, then eventually we did do a public launch. And that's when we like went PLG and said, look, we now have a self-serve way that you can sign up for free. You don't necessarily need to talk to a human first before getting access to Navattic.
And this was like after testing it kind of privately as well, and ensuring that everything is working smooth. And you probably had set up some way of metrics and tracking before going public, as you mentioned, right?
Exactly. That was where the activation rates Raman touched on. And for us, we have this concept of like to create a demo, you have to first we have to clone your product. We call it a capture. It's just like a fancy screenshot is a good way to think of it. So what we're really measuring is, are we hitting benchmarks that we got from like other PLG experts? Huge shout out to like Kyle Poyer here. We looked at a lot of benchmarks, Lenny's newsletter, to see, okay, average activation rate should be about like 30% for our activation metric of taking captures. Once we hit that, that's when we felt comfortable to actually go live and not just sort of do it behind the scenes.
How long did that take, that phase?
I'd say, that was probably like 5 months once we switched from the $50 a month to like a full free plan.
Yeah, exactly. There was a couple months where we were just heads down and building, and then there was like maybe 2-3 months where we were doing sort of that incremental, letting a little bit more traffic into the free plan and starting to see how they interacted with the free plan. And I think what that allowed for us to do too is not only improve our onboarding, but our sales team was able to adapt to this without having a flood of new freemium leads. They were able to really build a playbook for how to talk to these types of leads. And then it also just helped everyone feel a little bit better that it would, limit any impact on our ARR, or like limit any downgrades. So doing it in a little bit of a phased way was kind of nice to get a ton of buy-in and just make everyone feel comfortable before we announced to the world that we were PLG.
For sure. You've touched on something that I wanted to ask as well, which is like, how is implementing something like making it PLG, like how did that affect the other departments as well, like the sales, the marketing, the product? Like, because like, it definitely affects all the departments, right? In your case, what was that effect, as you said?
Yeah.
I'm happy to. Oh, sorry, Raman. I was gonna say I can start as like a pipeline number from like marketing perspective, because I'm head of growth, but I'm also head of marketing. It's one function here at Navattic, and I'm ultimately responsible for pipeline. We're a majority inbound company, so most of our net new sales come from inbound. So all that being said, like it was pretty important to keep pipeline up, and in the past, the only way was through booking a demo with the sales team. Now we had this free option, and we sort of knew that there would be some people who in the past would book a demo, create an opportunity, turn into pipeline, are going to just go the free route and might not eventually turn to pipeline. So we actually saw a decrease at first. And I always like to share this because one, it's something I've heard from a lot of PLG leaders. You might see a slight like pipeline and revenue hit when you first go PLG because your product probably isn't optimized just yet. Even if you did the 9 months of self-serve of behind the scenes testing, there's still things you're going to learn about. What features should I put in the upsell plan? How can I best reach out to these users? It's kind of like starting over. You're probably just not going to get 100% right. So at first, you probably will see a little bit of a hit of your pipeline revenue. And that was something as leadership that we all had to be like, okay, we all agree. We know this might happen. Like we understand that
Hold on. Yeah.
a little bit, they're going to go to the free quest. But I definitely still had a little bit of a freak out. And I have to give Raman a lot of credit because there were some times when I was a little like, okay, MQLs are down. I'm getting a little nervous because even though I totally approved this and know this was going to happen. So I would say expectation setting up front and knowing that that is expected and showing maybe examples from other leaders really help get other teams on board.
Yeah, I agree. I think it was just acknowledging the tension, sort of like aligning on what the main goal was. Like obviously our sales team was worried and that there'd be cannibalization or like there'd be a huge replacement of demo requests. But I think just also over communicating really helped us. We had these stand-ups between marketing and sales and this like PLG Tiger team where we were showing them what data we were seeing, talking about what was working, what wasn't working, and really listening to them and making quick adjustments. And then I'd say also we made it really easy for our sales team to share feedback. Obviously, like, we're launching a new motion, we're figuring a lot of things out. And so having sort of a really open line of communication with our sales team and making it easy for them to give candid, really direct feedback on both positive and negative things they were seeing, I think was super helpful.
Definitely crucial. Yeah.
Yeah, totally.
Going off of the question that Rob had asked earlier about, how can someone or like, a company start moving and implementing PLG. So we talked about, getting some information and understanding, right off the bat, like who your users are, what they would need in order to have this like product-led onboarding, let's say. For you had talked a little bit about, your own journey of, how you went through that. For your clients, your users, what is the typical journey for them? So as like another SaaS company, what kind of trends do you guys see when people implement, when they want to kind of shift from SLG to PLG, and how can they do that?
We've seen a few customers who, as I mentioned, might start with just like, not how do I make my product more self-serve or self-servable? Because one thing we haven't touched on this whole time, I'm realizing, is obviously you also need engineers. Like, we had amazing engineers at Navattic who implemented the changes we saw. It wasn't like we were the ones updating the product. So we also have some customers who might say, like, I love the idea of going PLG, but I don't have the engineering resources right now. So step one might just be like being more front with your product before you even think about changing it. We've heard customers do that, obviously, through interactive demos, even through things like just showing the product more on the website or in videos, just ways that you can make it earlier in the buying cycle that someone can see the product. They don't have to wait till like demo number 3. That could even be it. Could just be on your first call, actually show the product versus waiting for the 3rd demo. I find that helps because you sort of get buy-in from the company around this concept of like, it's okay to show our product. Our competitors aren't just going to copy everything we do. We get that concern a lot. And look, like, buying cycles move faster when we show the product earlier. Like, that was something that also helped us sort of prove out PLG, was that we have an interactive demo on our website. We could say, we know customer or prospects that go through the demo will move through this buying cycle and are more educated when they come to that first call versus if they haven't gone through the demo. That's like good ways to get some buy-in for it. Once the whole company's aligned, I'd start with, honestly, if I had to do it again, I'd probably do the way we do it. I'd maybe start with just offering a really low tier plan, or maybe on your website offering a free plan, but not just like publicly promoting it yet. See how those users are going through your product, watch recordings. We use Post Hub to watch recordings and analyze it, see where they're dropping off, talk with your team, like especially engineering team, to make those improvements, to make the product more self-servable. As we talked about, maybe it's like in-app guidance that shows you, hey, start here, then move here, rather than dropping them into a blank state. And then sort of just like keep iterating in a sprint cycle is how we did it. Similar to how the rest of the product works, every 2 weeks, we decide one friction point, one area where users are clearly struggling, improve it, and then just slowly the product got a little better.
So what you're saying is like you don't have to like put all your eggs in one basket right away and say, yeah, that's it. We're going from SLG to PLG. Everyone, hold on to your ships. It's gonna go down, as Natalie said, and we're gonna, see an increase later on. So you don't have to invest so much in it right away, right? And I think, yeah, you're right. Like,
exactly. Like, it also let us do it slowly and prove to everyone, like, hey, this is working and we're seeing some traction, before just investing in everything into it. I'll also say, by doing it slowly, to Lauren's question, it let us figure out the data models behind it and let us figure out, like, okay, how are we going to track these users? We already had Post-Hog in place, but I actually think if you don't have something like Post-Hog, something like Mixpanel, Amplitude, all those are so vital, because you're not going to be able to see how did users go from one step to the next and where are they dropping off. And like, you need to have that precision to understand, okay, this is the exact area in my product that I'm going to improve to make the most impact, or else you're just sort of guessing. So hopefully that helps, Lauren, as far as like getting as far as the reason for Mixpanel. I'd say, as far as actually moving, luckily we already had that set up. Moving your data can be very hard. I'd recommend talking to a team who've set up like getting your product data into a product like that, we can analyze it. And then obviously the back end of like tracking these leads in our CRMs, that was probably the most painful. Raman, I can let you touch on that, but even more than like the data tracking and using something like Mixpanel to see how users are working, I think the hardest part was transitioning our CRMs and like the way that we count leads and how they move through the sales cycle in a more like product-led way.
One thing I just add to the data side is it was really helpful for us to see where drop-off was in activation. But the other piece of it too is that we now get a ton more users in our product than we ever did before. And so there's a huge value to us now to be able to see how people are progressing through like going through the app, like where they're dropping off. We just have a ton more users in our user base. And so that's part of why it was really important for us to figure out how our data worked and be able to leverage all that data at some point.
Okay, I wanted to ask, like, it's a kind of, what came first, the chicken or the egg type of question. Like, did you have some like general idea of like what kind of metrics you wanted to track, or was it like later on that you saw some trend with the interaction and you wanted to kind of, kind of dive in on that?
Yeah, I think we were always really focused on activation. And the reason for that is, especially for these POG users, what we noticed was within like 2 minutes, they have made a decision about how they feel about the product. And sometimes they'll tell us in like a minute or two how they feel about the product. And so it started to become really obvious that getting them to activation, getting them to value quickly was the most important thing. And so once we were able to solve for that, that obviously helped our conversion. And it just made sense for us to really anchor and focus on improving activation and making sure that people saw value really quickly.
Yeah, perfect. We have some other poll questions as well, just to also like understand where people are in their journey, their onboarding. And I think some of the people, they've already like voiced it out in the chat, but we can get a better understanding of that as well. So the next question would be like, what part of the onboarding are you struggling with? So would it be like getting users to sign up, to try the product, or here we can kind of highlight that right here, helping users understand the product value quickly, or do you want to, is it like reducing drop-offs during the onboarding process, or maybe like personalizing the onboarding? So yeah, I think the personalization part and segmentation, I wanted to ask you guys about that as well, because the nature of your product as well, because it's a little bit more public, right? Like it's accessible to everyone at some point, right? um, how does that personalization segmentation, do you guys implement something like this, or is there like best practices when it comes to getting your users to hone in on that, the best way of starting that user journey?
Yeah, so we ask in our onboarding, we ask use case. So we'll try to understand, are they a marketing person, for example? Are they a salesperson, product, CS? Today, we don't really personalize anything in the product. Our plan is to eventually introduce some sort of more personalized experience in the product. Maybe it's like, for example, surfacing different templates based on if they selected marketing or sales. We also eventually want to try to do more of a personalized email drip outside of the product based on that use case. But yeah, I think right now it's mostly just our sales team that gets that use case information, and they can nurture a PQL or someone that has been handed off to them from the free plan based on how someone selected use case. But eventually we want to try to layer in some more personalization there.
Yeah, what are some of the like the different use case? I'm guessing like some employee onboarding as well would be like one of those like use cases that you guys have, and we can jump into the report that you guys released a couple of months ago. So you guys released like this like interactive product demo 2025, and you surveyed 280 users, and looked at 28,000 demos that were created with Navattic. And what I wanted to ask is like, when, like within this report, did you see like any trends, anything that, what kind of users, what kind of demos they were providing?
Yeah, I'm happy to touch on that. And just one last thing I'll add about like personalization, and especially personalized the onboarding experience. I think that's also why something like Mixpanel or some sort of data analysis is so helpful, because then you can see, hey, this user selected a sales use case. as Raman's mentioned, to start, we just have our sales reps reach out with like more personalized language, but eventually you could actually change the product and show them different features. We're not there yet, maybe one day, but just another plug for why I do think product data is so important. But anyways, to interactive demo data and our report. Yes, as you mentioned, every year we put out this report where we look at the top 1% of interactive demos built on our platform. We also this year surveyed 280 users to just get an understanding of how do top users of Navattic use interactive demos. The most common use case, and we've seen this for like 3 years in a row, is still more on that marketing side. So putting an interactive demo on your website in a PLG sense, basically giving them like, again, a little taste of what the product will look like and get them excited to actually sign up and get going. Because even though something's free, it still requires a little bit of work to generally like set it up, to see value. It's not, you don't usually just start a tool and you get value right away. So the interactive demo is a good way to show like, okay, if you go through the work, this is the end state you'll get. Here's like the aha moments and the results versus just here's how you set it up. That's how we see most customers doing it, putting it on their website to get, even if you are sales-led, even get like sales-led prospects a little excited about the product before they sign up for a call with your sales team. We did see more customers using it across a variety of different use cases. We also saw on average customers used it for like 5 different use cases. Some growing ones were actually in the product itself or during product activation or onboarding email drips, basically as a way to also, again, reinforce like, you've signed up for this product, here's what you can expect to get out of it. Or if you're stuck, maybe here's a little tutorial of how you could get unstuck. And then also in the sales use case, we see a lot of times in the sales cycle, someone will sign up for a demo. You still might not know how qualified they are, how interested they are in your product. So the sales rep will send them an interactive demo before they even jump on a live demo. The prospect will go through it. On the sales end side, you'll see what features they explore too. So then you'll have a little more data saying like, hey, this person went through my entire demo. They went through these 2 features in depth. I should probably touch on these 2 features more in my live demo. And you don't have to start by doing like a high level overview. You can kind of jump into a little more detail because they've already seen that like generic overview of your demo.
It goes back to that like time saving aspect of it, where from both parties you're saving time because, you know, from like the end user perspective, they're already seeing what the product can actually do. And then when they have that call, then it'll be like more towards like the more like important stuff. And this way the salesperson doesn't need to like repeat the same type of questions. I mean, they already got the little taste. And if then like they continue to have the call, then most likely as well they're more leaning towards like the qualified lead. So yeah, it definitely makes sense. I'm trying to understand like within the user journey, how does, you know, providing these types of demos, and you had mentioned, you know, for Navattic's part, you guys had like this like little, not freemium, but you know, like a little snack of a plan for them, but to kind of continue with that engaging. So after the sign up part, right, they've seen the demo, they like it, and then they want to get their hands dirty and start experiencing the platform. Have you seen, I mean, inside the app, are some of the users, they also implement some of the Navattic demos? Is that one of the use cases as well? And, you know, what is the best practices to get, you know, a person from 0 to becoming a customer, and not just a customer, like an active user of the product and the features?
Yeah, for our PLG customers, we'll often see them combine in-app guidance and interactive demos, which is pretty cool. So let's say you first have an in-app guidance flow that says, okay, welcomes you to the product. So you're not entering in like a blank slate. I think we've all been to a software, you just enter and you're like, what am I supposed to do? It shows you a few clicks of the most important things, where you should navigate to. And then at the end of the flow, usually it's just like, okay, you're good to go. Start using the tool.
Yeah.
We've seen a lot of customers who might say like, take a tour for more advanced functionality, or take a tour to see this more in depth. So again, kind of like teasing what more could come, and especially for upsell features. So even if you're not PLG at all, but you have upsell features in product, most SaaS companies do have like multiple tiers. And usually they'll have like the upsell feature listed within the application. You click on that page and you just get kind of like a big screen saying like, sorry, this feature isn't available for your plan upgrade, which which isn't always the best experience.
The middle finger, you know, I was like, nah, this is elite, top shelf features. You're not allowed.
Exactly. It feels a little bit like you don't get to see this. You're
Yeah.
not part of it. So we do this ourselves, and we've seen customers who will actually have an interactive demo of that upsell feature so that you can see what you'd potentially be signing up for and interested in. And then at the end of the demo, you could have a CTA to your CSM's calendar. So then you could talk with your CSM about upgrading, or you could have an app upgrade where they could just sign up and buy the advanced feature themselves. So that's been cool. I think that upsell makes a lot of sense because similar to the sales cycle and sort of what Shannon touched on with SEs, CSMs don't always have time to jump on calls every single time that a customer wants to see an upsell feature. So it allows them kind of like self-serve, see this upsell feature.
And I mean, like, even if they took the time, I mean, like, you don't want like, you might be losing a lot of like upsell opportunities, as you said. Like, you have to wait for them to like really be interested, and then, you know, take that next step to like contact their CSM, and then they have to like, again, wait to get that demo call and get that experience. But it definitely makes sense. The thing that comes to my mind is like familiarity. Like, you're providing those users with an environment. You're already giving them a sense of what they're going to expect, and it makes them more comfortable, right? From like a marketing perspective as well. It's like, it's always like the emotion part that you want to like play around with, and the more value, and, you know, when you provide this letter of it's a very difficult word to say, familiarity for the user, then they're more likely to kind of continue on that path. And, you know, you're dropping little like breadcrumbs so you don't alienate them and tell them, no, this is not for you. But, you know, if you take it to the route of giving them that teaser, then yeah, it makes sense for them, you know, to like continue and be more curious about that like upsell, the new feature. Raman, do you want to add anything to this type of, you know, how you're able to add Navattic, interactive demos?
Yeah, no, I would agree. I think what you said really captured is it's like you're bringing value up or you're adding more value. And even just like in the sign up process, like I think the old PLG world, it was like you sign up, you try the product, and then you get value, you understand value. And I think with interactive demos, it becomes you experience value first, and then you sign up, you get results, and you get even more value. And yeah, it's like we have a lot of like data softwares where like the traditional approach was like you sign up and maybe you spend like 30 minutes trying to ingest all your data and figure out how to connect it, and like an hour learning how to use the platform, and maybe somewhere in between that a bunch of people drop off. And I think with interactive demos, it's like you've already sort of played around with a pre-configured environment. Like you've already kind of seen what the value is and what the success looks like. And from there, it's just jumping into the platform, trying to figure out what to do and get to that moment on your own.
It goes back to like what Natalie said in the beginning of this this webinar about transparency. You know, like, don't worry about like what the competitor is going to see. Like, what we've seen as well is because like for us, we're very transparent with, for example, like our pricing and what our solution does and all this. And when I was in like sales, this was the winning token, like the differentiator. They would tell me like, oh, actually, like, we felt more comfortable with UserGuiding because you guys are very transparent with what with the pricing, with your plans, with what you're able to do. So it's more of it became, you know, it's supposed to be like a weakness thing, but actually it turned into the strength of the product itself, because they're able to like see that value right away.
So I think the best demos, like, they don't show everything. There's just a slice of value, and it's almost like a movie trailer versus the entire film. So yeah, I think it's just you pick the best scenes to show. It's not the whole
thing. Exactly. It's crazy how time flew by, to be honest. Let's see if there's like any questions. Natalie, what are you finding here? In the chat.
I saw Mohammed had a question. Apologies though, I'm not familiar with the term KYC stage. I might be missing. I might just be totally blanking there.
Maybe we can do a quick.
Do you mind? Maybe I'm missing something totally obvious, but do you mind explaining what that acronym is?
Is it a certification? Probably.
It's probably like for fintech, like know your customer. Is that?
Oh, is it Know Your Customer? If so, I'm going to start stealing that acronym. I thought I knew all the marketing acronyms out there.
Everything.
Oh, it is Know Your Customer.
Raman wins.
Yeah, according to AI. So.
All right.
Oh, so Mohammed, are you saying like should we basically be customizing the onboarding flow based off of the actual customer like ICP data, like what role they have? Think that.
I would agree with that, to be honest, because at the end of the day, it's all about the value. It's like time to value, right? And then when you KYC, when you know your customer, or you know the and then you understand like the most common use case of why people are, you know, coming to your platform, and tailoring it to that, you know, and in marketing, you know, the more kind of personalized you make it, then the more probability it is to attract the same type of customers that you already have. So even beginning in the like pre-sign up, just the messaging that you have on the website, or right, if maybe that's, I think that's what the question is about. When is the software is
Or if you're referring to like I think sometimes fintech platforms ask for a KYC before you can get into it. So I think that's also where like an demo could help, where you can show what a, like we have a lot of cybersecurity or like data platforms where they can't show everything immediately. And so part of what you can do with interactive demo is like show what a completed workspace looks like before the KYC process in a fintech, and show what the full workspace looks like, dashboards, and show that value before someone's actually dropped it to the software and have to go through that entire process.
Can you guys show like a mock dashboard, right? Are you able to do that as well with Navattic? So it doesn't need to be the actual like information, but maybe it's this the same thing as like transparency, as you said, like fintech probably don't want to show everything, right? But a little like teaser of the capability of the platform.
Yeah, we can definitely do that. I saw a good question from Rob that I feel like the user guiding team might have the best suggestions on, as far as like when should you know, for those intro flows, when is the best time to send messages? I'm also curious about this one.
For the in-app messaging, right? So like combining the sign up with the it's actually a little bit of what you've said as well, where because as I mentioned, like in the beginning, we started off as like just like an onboarding solution. So the use case was, you know, you wanted to onboard new users, and this is what we can do, or conversion trial to conversion to paid user. This was the main use case for UserGuiding, and we've built UserGuiding this way like 7 years ago. But as you said, like the more we understood our customers, the we're starting to get like a variety and more like an equal I don't know, like categorization of the different use cases. So it stopped being so much, you know, like for example, like onboarding was like 90%. It kind of decreased to like 70 or 60. But what was taking more was, for example, like self-service tools, functionality. So for example, like knowledge base. So it's more like support related content, knowledge base or AI, increased adoption. So even when they are a customer, we still want them, as you said, Ron, for example, like some customers, they're unaware of some features. So new feature announcements, feature adoption. So we started right now kind of providing these options of understanding what the user is actually looking for. And then based off of that, we provide them with a separate and a unique workflow. And one of the things that we did in our report, which I'll actually pull up here, was, hold on. We got the checklist was a great way of providing that like value right away, because as you said, when you sign up to a platform, the first thing you're going to do, like the first 7 seconds are so crucial, because that's like the initial impression. That's the, you know, they want to see the value right away, and you only have a couple of seconds to show that. So when that user logs in, if you're able to personalize it by them clicking on the category that they would want, or of course, like it's not a necessary one if your use case is you just have like one main use case, for example. But then providing those milestones in a checklist, this is what we've seen as one of the best ways because it's not so intrusive in their journey as well, right? So you would have, as you said, like for example, for Navattic's case, you guys have this like activation, right? You've already set what you wanted, what activation looks like, and what actions you want the users to take, and just dividing it into steps, right? So yeah, like that first step, as you see here in the report, we had, for example, you sign up to user guiding, check. So it gamifies it, for example, they've already signed up, obviously it's check marked. And then completing the installation was a really big one for the activation, and getting them to kind of, it's like 70% there, not there yet, they didn't see the value, but it's like 70% there. And then creating their first guide, and then once they've done that, they go live, and like they've seen what user guiding is capable of doing, and that's kind of like the best way that we were able to take them from like getting them to sign up, and then that like initial experience. But it depends, of course, like it depends on the users, it depends on what kind of product and activation steps that you have. But at the end of the day, you don't want to bombard them with a lot of information. You just want to keep it available for them to reach in case that they also want to kind of understand a little bit more, take that step further, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Amazing. I mean, we're right on time. 8 or for me, it's like 8 p.m. and a minute. Any final remarks? Any questions? I do have one question for you guys. The final takeaways. So, what's like one piece of advice that you would give for like a SaaS team for them to improve their onboarding or like product-led strategy today?
Yeah, I'd say I think we kind of touched on this earlier, but maybe this is oversimplifying things. But I would say like Natalie and I and the whole team, we spend a lot of time like watching user recordings, seeing how people go through the product, doing tests, doing interviews. And for us, that's been our most impactful way to improve activation. And we sort of blend that qualitative piece we're getting with what we're seeing where drop off is happening, where we're seeing in our like product analytics, and that's been our most effective play, is just like marrying the qualitative and the quantitative and figuring out where people are dropping off.
It's like data driven. Everything is data driven, right? What about you, Natalie? What would you say?
I was going to say the same exact thing. And honestly, so much kudos to Raman here, who does like user interviews, spends so much time looking at post hog, watching recordings. And I think the biggest thing it does too is it stops you from wasting time internally being like, should we do this or should we do this? Like it just answers it for you what's most important. And nothing is more convincing when you hear a user themselves being like, I didn't understand what this means. So definitely recommend get it from the user's mouth, get some qualitative data, quantitative data, and it will stop all the like ego fighting.
I know, and you have like this like decision burnout as well. Like you have to like understand which one. It's just a shortcut right there.
Exactly.
It's amazing how fast people make decisions too. It's like we see people in our chat within like 45 seconds with like a decision of their perspective of the product. And it's like, I think that's been a huge learning too, is like you really have to get people to value quickly.
Yeah, thank you guys so much for joining, having this conversation, and thanks everyone in the chat. I dropped in some links here. We got like a little feedback form just to better understand what everyone, for the future webinars, what kind of webinars you would be interested in. The engagement was amazing. We'll share, of course, like the recording afterwards, and share the not webinar, not Navattic webinar, the user guiding. What was there's a scheduled demo if you guys want, but I'll drop in also added the wrong link. There we go. Navattic's report as well. Take a look. It's a really interesting report. We've got the user guiding one, we've got the Navattic one, and yeah, thank you everyone. All right, stay warm.
Thank you so much for having us. Thanks everyone in the chat. This was awesome.
Thank you. Bye bye.